I'm very sure that you have been involved at certain points in your life, and maybe on a consistent basis, with noble endeavors. Uh, it's there's a reason for that. Part one reason is some people are wired for that. Their personality just makes noble endeavors and activities attractive to them. They're kind of wired unselfishly and with this seemingly very natural awareness of the world around them and people and needs. Some of it has to do with spiritual gifts, uh, but whoever you are, when you engage in a noble effort, there's fulfillment, and sometimes the greatest fulfillment. I think this is part of the reason why Paul writes to the Philippian Christians. This is in Philippians 4:8, uh, a great passage, a great verse to put into your memory banks, which I have done at various times, and it leaks. So I'm going to have to read it to you. But it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Now, the concept of this rests on the fact that, pardon me, when we think about these true and noble and all those other characteristics, when we think about things in those categories, it sets us up to be programming ourselves for those kinds of positive and good things. In fact, in my own life and in my counseling practice, I have often, what's the word? I don't command anybody in my in my counseling. That doesn't work. But a lot of times I advise, and often I advise that people begin to reprogram their brain, their mind, with Philippians 4:8. Now, when we think about things that are true and noble, it sets us up not only to transform our thinking away from all the horrible, depressing, discouraging, negative things that truly are happening around us and sometimes in our own lives, but it also does a very important thing, because you're not likely to do true and noble and honorable, praiseworthy things from Philippians 4:8 if you're not thinking about them. Okay, Paul writes to Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. Here's a trustworthy saying: whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. The task is noble. And then he goes on to describe the character of the man who would fill this role. A man of noble character. He says in verse 2, now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife. We talked about this last time. There are a lot of ways to be faithful to your wife. And there are other translations of this phrase. Some versions of the Bible translate it the husband of one wife. Some even would go so far as to say the husband of but one wife. Others translate it a one-woman man. And there are churches who have as their policy, which I think goes down back to their DNA as individuals in corporate fellowship, they prohibit divorced men from being elders because they have had, if they've remarried, they have had more than one wife, which to me, I think I understand why they would do that, but it doesn't ring well with me for several reasons. One is I have friends who have divorced. Actually, they have been divorced by an unfaithful spouse. This was not their idea. It wasn't of their making. They're divorced nonetheless. Okay, they were faithful. Their spouse was not. A second thing that is intriguing to me, at least, is I do know people who were divorced before they came to know Jesus, and their lives were transformed. They're not the same person. They're not the same man who divorced or was divorced. And they remarried, and in a number of these cases, they remarried wonderful, godly women who have been part of their journey of transformation in their lives. And those are just a couple of the reasons that I don't really agree. I won't make it a point of, it's not a deal breaker, but I don't agree with the idea that if a man has been divorced, that disqualifies him from serving as an overseer or an elder. Some people, as I said, believe this, and some believe it so strongly. It is a hill they would be willing to die on. I got other hills, okay? Now, some people even say, pardon me, that an elder must be a married man. We're going to see just in another phrase or two that there is an implication for this. Their reasoning is you can't be faithful to your wife if you're not married. That goes outside the strongest implications of this passage. Now, some people would say, well, I think you're ignoring the fact that the term wife is there, and later on he talks about his own household and his own children, so that kind of makes it okay. I'll give you that, but I'll also give you that a single man who fits the character profile here could contribute very nearly everything that a married man could contribute to the health and welfare of the family. Is he not a part of the family if he's not married? No, he's a part of the family. I could go on, but here's the bottom line for me. We're talking about a man's character, not so much his past and not so much his marital status, but his character. So the first thing is an overseer is to be above reproach and then faithful to his wife. My view is if he's married, he's faithful. If he's not married, he demonstrates the character and qualities of a man who, if he marries, will be faithful to his wife. Temperate. What is temperate? Well, there's the temperate zone, which has to do with the outside temperature, right? Where it's neither gets too hot nor too cold. Everything, it's kind of the Goldilocks zone, right? It's just right. Kind of would like to live in the temperate zone, but that's not what this is talking about. In Paul's day, the temperance was a direct connect with use of alcohol. Some people believe that temperate means total abstinence, that an elder cannot drink. I don't want to come across as a liberal because I always want to be thought of so well, but this is worthy, okay? Temperate means within reasonable boundaries, a balanced approach. Now, I think you can apply this to a lot of things beyond alcohol consumption. I totally agree that an overseer, if they drink alcoholic beverages, they do so with temperance. In other words, they do so with balance. They are moderate in their consumption. I think this also applies in lots of other areas. Let me just kind of poke out a few of those areas. One is their eating habits. Does that mean they can't be overweight? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying somebody who doesn't know how to control their eating probably has trouble controlling other parts of their life to moderation. What about their work habits? Workaholics. They're not temperate in the way they approach their work. I'm not sure this would have been an issue for Paul's day, but in our day, I come across it all the time, that some men are not temperate in their sports activities and their sports investments, right? There are this category of guys that I encounter pretty routinely who were high school jocks, and when they graduated, they didn't get a scholarship to college. They didn't play professional sport, but they still have this thing in them. They are a jock. So they play every sport. They're gone 2 or 3 nights a week from home playing or watching. And then there's these other guys. They don't have any other channels on their TV other than Fox Sports and ESPN, and they just watch it incessantly. And some of them bet money that they don't have on games that they have no way of knowing the outcome of. Okay, so I'm drawing a pretty bleak picture. The answer to that is moderation, temperance. Does a man lead a life of balance? That's really what it comes down to. I know some who are intemperate about making money. They're driven to make more. They're kind of like what I've heard. I think it was Rockefeller was once asked, how much money is enough? And he just said, just a little more. Okay, so this person is above reproach. They're faithful to their wife. They're temperate. And joining hands with this temperate lifestyle is self-control. And in my mind, you can't be temperate without self-control. It's not possible. The thing that makes a balanced life possible is self-control. Sometimes self-control can become so much the objective that compassion goes away, empathy goes away. The only thing that remains is the goal ahead and my self-discipline toward it. This is not what Paul is talking about. When Paul wrote about the fruit of the Spirit, the last of the 9 virtues is self-control. The Holy Spirit wants to produce self-control as the fruit of his work in the believer's life. And sometimes we make it really hard for that to happen. All right, come back to this next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.